You can't use the word revolution, though, can you?
No.
Oh, you threw. I loved it. You threw.
I couldn't think of what to say.
Some secret.
It was all right. I was mid-babble. You've got to work out how you're going to.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Hurdy Gurdy Café, an hour of interviews, music, and camaraderie. I'm Ryan, and I'll be your host along this crazy adventure through the land of the wheel fiddle. So strap in, and let's see what's cranking in the Hurdy Gurdy community today. All right. Hey, welcome everyone back to the Hurdy Gurdy Café podcast. We're here with a really special guest today, Nigel Eaton. Hello, Nigel.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got Sergio Gonzalez with us, as always.
Hello.
Excellent. And today we're going to start out the podcast with a lovely track from Nigel, a 1986 synth pop experimentation called The Devil Dance. So let's give that a listen, and then we'll return with Nigel and see what we can talk about today.
Let's do it.
Cool.
A 1986 synth pop experimentation from Nigel Eaton called The Devil Dance, and we're going to go ahead and get rolling. So welcome, Nigel. It's really wonderful to have you with us today.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for asking me. Great. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Sergio. Hello, everyone.
Is there anything you'd like to say about what we just listened to? Your Devil Dance?
Me and Paul James, a friend from Blosabella, we did some music for a puppet show all about Dr. Faustus for a British Council music tour. That's really boring. Anyway, we toured. We went to Brazil and everywhere and toured this in the original Christopher Marlowe oldie worldy English, which is even I couldn't really understand. Anyway, so we wrote the music for it, and I think that's a tune from a scene where one of the puppets is dancing provocatively for the devil or something. Yeah, I forget what it was. A long time ago.
No videos of that.
That's with Juno synthesizers, so it was an old school synths and stuff. And it was in the days when my first Hurdy Gurdy, the one that got stolen, only had unison G chanters, so there's no low melody. So in those days, everything was really sort of high pitched in my world. And
right. But that's the Hurdy Gurdy you found like 2 miles down the road. Is that
exactly? It's the one that was stolen out the back.
That's a very nice story.
Yeah, from it was stolen. I rather stupidly parked my van in Chinatown in central London with this Hurdy Gurdy here, and a bass guitar, handmade bass guitar, the great Ian Luff's bass guitar, and one of the Juno synthesizers, gone forever. But we got the bass back quite quickly. But the Hurdy Gurdy, that took 24 years to come back. I saw it on eBay. Wow. I saw it for sale on eBay for it had bids on it and everything. And Christopher Eaton double keyboard Hurdy Gurdy. Of course, it was going to have bids on it. And I look at the Hurdy Gurdys for sale every day, really. And I saw this, and I said to my wife, "That's obviously my Hurdy Gurdy." And she was going, "Are you sure?" And I go, "Well, yeah, it's practically got my name on it, you know."
Right.
And it's the double keyboard one. And I checked out the sort of other things that the guy was selling to see if it was, you know, guns or house-breaking equipment for burglaries.
Right.
And I knew it's a wooden stuff. It was he had a dulcimer and a model of the Victory warship and a model of a Spitfire. And this old guy just liked wooden, interesting things. And he had evidently bought it from a street market down the road, back literally 2 miles away from us, probably within a week or two of it being stolen back in 1987.
Wow.
And I rang him up and I said, "Well, it's mine." He said, you know, old Frenchman, Nigel Eaton, I have heard of you. I was going to kick you off there about getting a wheel cover. I don't use wheel covers, I know. And I said, "Yeah, it hasn't got a wheel cover. Do you know what? It's in my loft with all the other ones." But unfortunately, he didn't get hold of my dad. So I could have had it years ago. Anyway, it came back and it still had the original cotton wool that I put on, my pink cotton wool that I had at the time. He never played it. He just sat it on a shelf in his kitchen, a Frenchman's kitchen shelf. Imagine the amount of duck fat that had landed on no wheel cover. Imagine. And it's still suffering a bit. I mean, half of the wheel is a different colour to the other half of the wheel because of all the ingress from braised doigts, whatever it's called, you know, basically goose fat. Anyway, it works good, yeah. And it's a double keyboard one. It's the first double keyboard one Dad ever made.
Oh,
it's a copy of a sort of nickel harper system, but
maybe you can explain a little bit the double keyboard system for the people that doesn't know it.
So the normal keyboard then, as you and Ryan know, the white bit and that black bit. Now these dots underneath, they're actually a duplicate of the upper keyboard laid out in such a way where it's too difficult to play a tune on it in its own right, but you can seek out interesting chords and intervals whilst you're playing the normal keyboard. You have to more or less stop playing the normal. You can't play a tune on the upper one and then hold down another note, as you probably know. When you're playing something on the first keyboard, you're fully engaged doing that, but it's quite good for playing shapes and gothic introductions to things. That one's not in tune, but this is the one that Dad made me as the replacement for the one that was stolen, because I was using it in Blosabella all the time. And
wow.
So that's great.
Sounds huge. Even through that microphone, it's sounding like whoa.
Is it too big? Is it all right? You see that?
Yeah.
Can you lower the camera a little bit so we can see
I'll lower the camera. You can see it a bit better.
Lovely. There.
So this is the one that Dad built as a replacement to the one that was stolen. So that's a G drone. That's a normal chanter. And then there's the second keyboard chanter keyboard. they're in a straight line, but that's not how
chromatic.
you do it. It's fully chromatic, but only up to a certain point, because you can't go much beyond there. Things get a bit tight, as you can probably imagine. Yes. And then the two together.
Wow, okay.
Good, isn't it? It does work good. And so that was an added bit of colour that you can use, especially if you're accompanying singers. Mm-hmm. Or say you're playing with a bagpiper or something, and you're playing for dancing or whatever, and you want to accompany them with something that's fat with a pH.
Yes,
you can and keep the beat going.
No one except your dad did that system, right?
No, but it's only a nickel harper system.
I know, but now, Ryan, we need to make a call to all the luthiers listening to this. Please, someone copy this system. Please bring it back to the market. I need one. Come on.
The main complication with it, why it's a bit dear to have made, is because I like wooden tangents. And if you've got wooden tangents, it means that you can't squeeze that many chanterelles onto the top of the wheel. And it's especially a problem for this string, the second keyboard, the other low G. So it's a low G viola, Corelli crystal, gut, and then another low G to match the first one. But it's so far over that if you were to play the upper notes, then it would be tending to push the string off of the back of the wheel.
Yeah,
so you lose all the pressure. So these are actually pivoted. They're pivoted in a line very close to the line of the axle of the main wheel. So as the key comes in, it's actually pushing around. So it's following the shape of the wheel as it goes round. So it's keeping the pressure constant on the wheel. It's doing that exactly.
Yeah, it's like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. They're pivoted right at the bottom. Those each tangent stem. So it keeps the pressure, pretty much good enough, constant. But that's an engineering solution, which is, means lots and lots and lots of expensive little bits,
Oh, yes.
Especially at my dad's rate. Anyway, there it is. He built that for me. He wanted me to have one, and we were both annoyed to have lost it. But to get it back, was, insane.
The one you were just playing, was that the second one he built with the double keyboard?
Yeah, this is the second one. Okay. He's made 17 altogether of the double keyboard types.
Just 17. Oh my God.
Just 17, yeah. And I think as Wolfgang Valschelbaumer, he's built a system, hasn't he, where you can play double keyboards, but where you have to press the key backwards or something. You can press it, but if you press it even harder, it somehow activates another string. I've never really quite worked out what it was, but it seems a bit hit or miss. But this one is obviously two completely independent, fully functioning keyboards, made with engineering. I'm sure Wolfgang's is as well, but I just don't understand Wolfgang's one. Yeah, I've yet to see one close up would be the trouble.
I never seen that system from Wolfgang. Probably let's ask Wolfgang to come to the podcast, Ryan. Why not?
Yeah, get him to explain himself. My dad.
Maybe we can ask him.
Yeah, he'd love to know. We'd love to. I'd love to know.
So we'll have to get Nigel back on the podcast too, so that he can ask the questions.
Exactly.
I'll find out. Yeah. We have ways of making him talk.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of questions for you today. And the first one, which is probably the most important, is this one. And that is, I went back through a lot of your work and looked at pictures of you playing and videos, and I never saw any where you were showing off your cleavage or wearing short skirts. So how did you get so good?
How did I get so good? Well, I copied everyone else.
Okay.
Interesting.
Who in particular?
Well, having a sort of musical ear, I guess, which is lucky, isn't it? I can copy other players. Well, Cliff Stapleton, really, to start with. And then Sam Palmer, of course, they were both in Blowsabella together. And Imagine you're a young chap and you're 15 and your dad's made this thing and you're getting crucified at school for being, when it came out that you were making, that I was playing these things. You sort of look to other outlets to find some sort of cool somehow. And hearing bands like Blowzabella playing Cliff and Sam, you think, yeah, I could do that. And if I was in that, then that would really shut up everyone at school and they'd think it was cool or whatever, despite the fact that maybe it wasn't that much. So and then I went to Saint Chartier. The first year we went to Saint Chartier was should explain. Saint Chartier is a French Hurdy Gurdy, especially a French Hurdy Gurdy festival right in the middle of France, which happened every year from about 1977. It's where all the makers go to show their instruments, and it's where all the sort of young hurdy-gurdy guys and people all over the world go to try and sit nose to nose and out hurdy-gurdy each other.
Gurdy porn everywhere.
It's warring young men mostly trying to outdo each other. And I saw Patrick Bouffard there, and probably playing with maybe Gilles Chavanat. And I liked Patrick's style particularly because it's so aggressive, and for playing for dancing, it's what I wanted. I could see myself doing and watching that, and I was impressed by how the dancers were reacting to him and how he was in charge of the entire show, and his buzzing was commanding the steps really of the dancers. And I thought, well, that is totally what I want to do. And not only that, I want to do it better than him. When you're 15, okay. Yeah. And then there's Gilles Chavanat, and he's admirable, isn't he, because of his full range of abilities as well. And then I luckily got I got the possibility of being able to go and study with Valentin Clastrier. Just me when I was 16, so I left Southampton all by myself with a pork pie and a bit of Edam cheese, and got on the ferry and went to middle of nowhere in France to study with Valentin Clastrier for a week. Paid for by somebody who was a member of the Hurdy Gurdy Society in Britain, an American patron. I think he was a telescope designer. I wish I could remember his name. It was terrible. Anyway, but he sent me to Valentin, and you really play when you're at Valentin's. Well, I didn't. I was too overawed, I guess. But Valentin has this big blackboard, and he draws out all these circles with all the buzz positions on it, and he demonstrates one-to-one, in this case, over the whole week, just me and him. And he plays the beats and everything. You're thinking, oh, well, when he's gone, I'll give that a go. But if you watch someone doing that with that amount of passion, it's something that does sort of rub off on you. You think, oh, yeah, I could use that bit, that little bit he did there, where he goes, da-da-da-da. I could use that. No, I know no one in Britain is doing that. Cliff can't do it. Wouldn't be able to do it. Definitely, they're too old. Forget it. I can do this, and then that'll really show them. So I was pinching little bits of inspiration, I guess, from Valentin. There's no hope in hell I could ever get anywhere near it. The full package. Obviously, his head is somewhere else. He's useful for pinching little bits and patterns and stuff you can use elsewhere. Dead handy. I can't remember the question. Well, that was it. Because I copied all of them. Yeah.
Copy everyone and practice a lot. There is no shortcut.
And I had Dorian Musket as well to start with, teaching me Baroque things, and then I joined Blowzabella, and then this is the key to the whole thing. If you're in a really good band where the musicians around you really nail the beats really, really well, you can't help but be good. You just have to either follow it or be damned, really, isn't it? Right. And then when you get a bit of confidence in yourself and you start deciding, well, actually, do you know what? I'm the drummer. I'm not going to listen to anyone else telling me where the beat is. You just get a sort of arrogance of a normal rock drummer in the end, and you just decide that everyone's going to follow you. And anyway, I've turned myself up to 11, and they're going to actually have so there it is.
These go to 11.
But that's playing for dancing, though, which is this is not a concert idea. I'm not listening to other people's opinion musically when I'm playing for dancing. I'm playing for those dancers on my own. If there's people around me joining in, well, good luck to them, because they're going to have to keep up. Because the important thing is watching the dancers and making them happy. that's my mission, really.
So do you think would it make people better if they were able to play for dancers? Because that was the same thing in Irish music.
Yes, absolutely. Dancers, though, mostly they're very experienced dancers often, and they're used to dancing to no matter what, even if it hasn't got any groove or any beat particularly. they're there to dance, and they'll make the best of it, which is a bit of a shame, really, because if they just stopped dancing as soon as the groove was lost, then that would be a lovely lesson for the musicians, wouldn't it, to make sure that they never ever allowed that to happen. But dancers dance differently when there's a lovely groove going. They smile and they feel relaxed, and they know that they can go for a particular expressive turn or a twist or something, because they know that the band isn't going to leave them hanging. They're going to hit the beat, and they may even give them some syncopation beats as well that can help them dance better. And it's just they smile more and they clap more at the end, so it's important if you play for dancing. Yeah.
And so were you, other than kind of taking ideas from these greats that you've mentioned, were you primarily self-taught other than that?
I would say yes. I mean, I was playing along to loads of Vielle records, but more particularly playing along to Vielle de Bourbonnais. That's that French trio, isn't it? That's Frédéric Paris, the great Frédéric Paris, and Jean-Claude Blanc and Bernard Blanc. So it's bagpipes, various Bernard Blanc is the French bagpipe maker, but they had a trio, and they play a lot of traditional things and other things as well that they've written. But that was probably the most influential album, because it's so funky. And it's just, there's no drums. It's just two hurdy-gurdys, or they swap around. And yeah, that's Frédéric Paris and the Blanc brothers. They're really important to me anyway. So if you're playing along with these guys, you can't start dragging the beat. It's on a record. You can't. They're not going to listen to you, are they? You have to follow them. And when you've got that sound in your head, I know where Frédéric Paris was going to put that trumpet beat, so I make sure when he's not there, I put it in the same place. You imitate, like a monkey, what you've heard, in a way, yeah.
Right.
Until you develop your own style, I guess.
I mean, that's a good point. You talk about playing for dancers, which is excellent, but I never really thought about it. Just getting some recordings of the people you like and trying to imitate where they are doing what they're doing. That's probably a wonderful way for people who are getting started.
And especially the details. Yes, the details.
Get it really loud in your head or in the room on a hi-fi and play along. And hopefully you'll remember, when it's just you on your own playing for some dancers, you'll remember that sound and that whole pulse that was going on, and hopefully be able to recreate it. But I suppose it takes a certain amount of arrogance to do that. I don't know, or just determined memory. You're not gonna, you know what you like, and you're gonna copy what you like.
Right.
And you hope other people do too.
Right. Well,
if you get it right, you can't really go wrong, can you?
Right. Yeah. Sergio, I've been asking most of the questions. I want to turn it over to you.
Yes, I'm as always. I am mesmerized with the talk, and I'm like, So, Nigel, did you make your first Hurdy Gurdy? Is that correct?
They're the best ones.
How?
Totally the best one.
So how did all started? It was because of your dad. Can you tell us the beginning, the really beginning of the story?
Literally at the beginning there, my dad worked for the Ministry of Defence, the MOD, that's the old War Office, and they made bits of military aircraft. And well, they don't know what they did. They were never told what they made. But my dad's official title is a fitter and turner, which is the making of things out of metal, things that won't go wrong, things that somebody's life, in a way, on the battlefield will depend on not going wrong.
Okay.
Metal work for the military, yeah. But in about 1970, late 70s, he saw a ghost story on the BBC called Lost Hearts, and it's about this ghost boy who plays a hurdy-gurdy, and he goes around stealing hearts out of, or he had his heart stolen by this serial killer, I guess, and he walks and he moves around playing his hurdy-gurdy, and every now and then you see there's a hole. But Dad liked the sound of it, and also shortly after that he saw another black and white film called Captains Courageous with Spencer Tracy, and filmed in the 1930s. Okay,
Oh, yes.
so Spencer Tracy is like a sea captain, and he plays this hurdy-gurdy, and a posh boy falls off of a passing cruise ship, a spoilt little brat, and this Spencer Tracy is a peasant fisherman playing this hurdy-gurdy and teaches this boy how to be a man. And Dad will also like the sound of that. And then we went to the Hurdy-Gurdy Society with the Dorian and Michael Musket Society, and with the cassettes of the sound of both of these things. And we were inquiring as to what type of hurdy-gurdy this was, and what type of, because the one he built by then didn't sound anything like it. The Hurdy-Gurdy Society we played the tapes, and the first one, The Lost Hearts, was an Epinette de Vosges, like a sort of dulcimer going dong, dog, a dong, dog, a dong, dog. And we were wondering why the hurdy-gurdy didn't sound anything like it. And then the Spencer Tracy film was a string quartet had been overdubbed over the whole. We were so
no.
So it was like a string quartet, with a cello and all the moving bass parts. And Dad was going, "Oh, like that. I think I'll try and make something like that." And we felt so daft because the thing he'd made, I'm blaming him, just went, well, you know what they sound like. Wasn't anything like it. So he was making the wrong thing to start with. But why he wanted to do it is because it's a mechanical machine. It is a machine, and he uses metalworking techniques really to build them. He uses milling machines, and he hasn't got a circular saw. It hasn't got any woodworking stuff. It's all precision machinery, and that's why they're so accurately made, and why they've yet to fail. In a crisis. It's the thing I was bore on about. You want something when you're stood in front of some dancers and they're expecting the beat to be in the right place. You don't want something to fall off the hurdy-gurdy, do you?
So did he build it at work then?
So he built occasional bits at work in these. He'd asked the foreman if he could have an hour and stay later and make some bits. And in those days, you were allowed to do that. But no, he had a falling out with the guy his foreman at work one day, and he thought, "Oh, damn it! I'm just going to go and do this." I'm having a midlife crisis. I might as well have a proper one. And then he got some hurdy-gurdy plans from the Muskets again, from Dorian and Michael Musket. She's departed, unfortunately. But anyway, so he got the plans from her, and then set about. It was a Pajot loop body, the old traditional French one. And he copied it faithfully, and it was right. Dad made it better than, technically better than Pajot would have done, but Dad's an engineer. And that was the first one, and that's the first one I own. That's the one I play in Bozabella, my D coloured one. And it took about 2 or 3 years, I think, before he sold the first one. But he'd made 8. He made a batch of 8 to start with, so a couple of years, but really nobody was interested. I think they were 300 quid or something at the beginning. Now this is this is like a lot of money in those days, but not enough even then. I mean, my dad had never really valued his own work, the value of his work, because he was being paid by the government and probably not very well. And you get into this mindset of the work that you do being of being the value that you were getting in your wages. So he was spending. He'd look at his instrument and go, "Well, I don't know what to charge for it. I've never done this before. I don't know." I think they were 300 quid, and of course, at that price, no one was interested. Which is the exact opposite of what you hear these days. That apparently the interest is supposed to be that they're going to be really, really cheap. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Right. It's actually wrong. But Dad didn't sell them until he put the price up. He said, "I'm not going to, if I can't sell one for 300 quid, all right, I won't sell one for 900 quid. So he put the price up to 900, sold one the next day. Because it was a real thing. And the price proved it in those days. It was the right money for the right thing.
Right.
It was, and he'd respected his own work, and other people respected that too. It was a win-win. And then the waiting list went to 3 and 4 years and stuff,
Oh, okay.
There we are. So that's how we started. Don't be too cheap.
So it all started because of your dad, and then you decide to make one your own.
Dad would take it, but Dad was building 8, so it was
okay.
It was absolute torture then, wasn't it, to see him making things. But I think my woodwork teacher at school had a book of Learn Yourself How to Make Musical Instruments. There was a Hurdy Gurdy in it, and it was by Zachary Taylor, who's not the president American dude, an old retired guy up in Ipswich somewhere, and he'd written this book on Learn Yourself Instruments, and it was a simple 3-string one with a wheel in the right place and nice big size wheel, and the wheel was the right size, and the keys actually worked, okay, and they were the normal keys, and it was really, really simple and great. And I added a trumpet to it, which didn't exist, and Dad gave me the handle and axle system that you pinch from work, and I put it in the first one, and it was only diatonic, so 8 notes then, and then I built another one for my sister, and then we played duets at school. School
nice.
concerts and stuff, and then Dad finally finished, started to finish the first of the batch, and then he handed me the first one to try. And after you've spent a year and a bit playing, a 3-string diatonic, and you've got minors, and you've got and the trumpet sounds good, and there's extra drones, and the keyboard works this time because it's made accurately and everything, and it's I found I was a bit better at it than I thought I was going to be. Yeah, it played itself compared to the ones I made.
And how old were you then?
So that would have been 50. I would have been 16 then.
Okay. When you built your first one?
Yeah, 16 to 16 and a half. And Dad took about a year and a half to build the first batch. So as the door going, build the first batch of 8. And so that would have, and he started when I was 15 then. So it would have been 16 and a half before I got the real one. And then we went to St Chartier just before that. And Dad didn't have a completed Hurdy Gurdy. He just had a bag of bits in a plastic bag, and hoping to sort of impress the people there with the potential of what this might be. Of course, nobody paid any attention, did they? And in the olden days, you had to have carnets to travel to abroad, and horrific customs issues to do with exporting of bits, and they had to count all the bits, and then we had to count them all back again when we got across the border back into England. It was horrific, like it's going to be. Anyway,
I know.
Another story.
Of course.
We won't. But happily it all changed. And then the following year, he built real Hurdy Gurdys by then, and we had a full stall at St Chartier, and could stand with the rest of them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, before we continue on with this, we're really cranking through some time here and some interesting stuff, which is great. But I would like to listen to another one of your tracks, Kate at the Gate from Panic at the Cafe. So can we take a moment to listen to that?
With Andy Cutting, the great Andy Cutting. Good.
Yeah, let's take a moment and we'll have a listen to Kate at the Gate from Panic at the Cafe.
It's a very nice album. This is one of the first Hurdy Gurdy albums I heard in my life.
Oh, good grief! What, on cassette? Maybe what, on cassette, or was it on CD? Or do you remember?
No, I listened to it on CD or yeah. I maybe I found it on the internet. But
if you ever want it on cassette, I've got 700 of them in my loft.
No, come on.
Can we get a signed one?
I could do you a signed one. If you can find an unsigned one, it's worth a fortune.
Well, is there anything you'd like to tell us about this album, Panic at the Cafe?
Who is Kate? Who's Kate?
Who's Kate?
Kate is a daughter of a friend of ours who bought a Hurdy Gurdy from us, and she was about 8. And the story is actually really, really dull, I'm afraid. I bought a new reverb machine, and you get gated reverbs. And I was writing this tune, and you can type in names on the old effects, 19-inch effects racks, for later, and it was like Kate liked it. I just called Kate and her gate or something. It's really, and that's tedious. It's all lovely and romantic, doesn't it? Like a sort of gate with all flowers and loveliness everywhere, and it was all crap.
Yeah, I was listening to it, and I was just imagining in my mind that this was, Nigel's first love, and he was walking away from her.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, just think that then. And I'm really pleased with that one, and it needed Andy to really make it.
Andy's ace.
Andy's ace. What the great, wonderful accompanist, and my junior at the time, and I tried not to patronise him and treat him like a little baby brother, but it's hard to do when he's, a little lad, and he admired Blosabella and wanted to be on a stage with me and Ian and Paul and everything. And yeah, that was early days. And he's the great man, isn't he now? So,
yeah, he's on everything. It seems like everything I look up, there's like a reference to.
Yes.
I can't afford him. No one can.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, because it's the elephant in the room, for some of us, at least me.
Yes. 94, right?
Yeah, 94. I'm just kind of curious, and a little bit of background from my own perspective. Led Zeppelin was all I listened to for pretty much my entire high school career. I was in a Led Zeppelin tribute band. I saw you, I believe, in '95 in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
I didn't know you'd seen it.
Oh yeah, I was there.
And that was the first time you'd seen one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first time I kind of knew what one was. I do remember seeing, Page with the Autumn Lake thing, and Song Remains the Same.
Oh yeah, yes.
But then you did the Unledded bit, and I'm just curious about that. Number one, how did you get that gig? How did that come about?
Well, I was in 1991. Me and Andy just made Panic at the Cafe, and I think Blosabella had split up by then, and Andy was off playing with Chris Wood and the World and his wife, playing with everyone, and I couldn't really get him anymore. And I guess I can't really remember, but I'd run out of work, so I decided I was going to give the whole thing up and be a courier driver. That's somebody who drives packages around London, delivering stuff, like a postman, like a private postman sort of deal. I bought a little van and sat in a car park for 2 days waiting for my walkie-talkie to go off to go and collect some package from something. But no, I'm going to have one last go. So I printed out some little business card. I'm going to have one last go at being a Hurdy Gurdy player. It's got to be better than this. So I printed out a card, Nigel Eaton, Hurdy Gurdy player, reasonable rates. Reasonable rates, and then the phone number. I thought, now I'm going to take this all around to all the studios, because it only takes one nerk to be there and want to have me on, and who knows what could happen.
You never know. Yeah,
probably kick off. And the next day, after I'd driven around in my van all the studios, the next day Robert Plant phones up. It didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, did you know who he was?
No, well, it rang a bit of a bell, but I decided it was probably, by the time I put the phone down, it was Robert Palmer, I decided, and I was going to go to the studio and meet all the girls playing all the guitars and all the drums and gang, all the whole bit. And I ran to my Naomi in Sainsbury's. I said, look, Robert Palmer's rung. I've got to go to a studio now. It's like, I'm back. And he said, and when I got to the studio, I went into the reception where I'd only been the day before, 2 days before tops. And the girl sat down in the reception was going, oh yeah, you came in. Yeah, you'll never believe what happened. About 6 hours after you left, Robert Plant comes out about 3 a.m. going, I've got to find me a hurdy-gurdy.
Oh my God.
Wolverhampton. I don't do accents.
Yeah.
But when he's being a rock star, he sounds like a rock star. He puts on an American sort of twang. I've got to find, apparently, according to the reception girl, I've never actually heard him do anything like that. But yeah, and she handed in the card. He said, here you are, this fella came in earlier. Yeah, so I was there when all these hairy people, Robert Plant, his hairy band, and all these people at Rack recording studio in Regent's Park, where I played on I Believe and various other ones from Fate of Nations.
Right.
Yeah, and that was all fine. I got me 50 quid and everything, and then
Really?
yeah. This is another reason why I got the tour. Apparently, I didn't know who they were. Was why I got the tour. If I'd been a sort of fan of theirs and had charged them accordingly, then I probably wouldn't have got it, because they do not like being overcharged for stuff because of who they are. Right. And anyway, I spoke to him like a normal person because I didn't know who he was, and I was disappointed that it wasn't Robert Palmer and all the girls. 18 months later, then he phoned me up again and said, I'm putting this thing together with Jimmy Page, who you might have heard of. I was going, we need you to come along and meet Jimmy and bring your hurdy-gurdy as well and some amplifiers so we can hear it. Went up and played the thing to him, and I looked the part at the time. I had hair everywhere and looked like a 28-year-old rock star, I guess. And me and Jimmy got on, and he had got on well, and he had brought his hurdy-gurdy with him, a little guitar shape. I think it's a Coulson.
An original Coulson? Oh.
Yeah. Which I condemned as being a heap of junk, which it totally was. I mean, it was fitted up by an idiot. And it was, not that it mattered, because it's all part of that mysterious vibe that Jimmy has around him. And it looked good in the video, and it was unique and whatnot. So I played him the real one, what they can actually properly sound like as soon as you put the drones on, as soon as you whack out some thumping stuff. And heard no more again. And then the manager phoned me up and said, well, we're doing Unplugged and they both want you to be there, and we have to start rehearsing quick. Says it was the Egyptian ensemble, wasn't it, with Page Plant there, and Nash started doing singing and Battle of Evermore and everything. And then we went to Wales to a slate quarry and filmed all this stuff, Nobody's Fault But Mine and Levee Breaks, I think, and Black Dog and things. I wasn't on that one. And then that was that. And then at London Weekend Television, when we did the actual proper full Unledded show, there they said, well, do you want to come on tour with us? And I was going, well, yeah, I'd imagine like a couple of weeks. Longest tour I'd ever done had been in West Africa with Bozabella for 6 weeks. And I was going, well, it can't be longer than that. I might be able to get some tyres for the van. It's going to be, it'll be probably a couple of years. I was going,
2 years? Wait a second, 2 years?
I'm not sure. Actually, I can't. I might have time. I'll have to check my diary. So then that was that. So the tour started down. We went into rehearsal and everything, and the tour started, and the rest is history, I suppose. But it takes a certain type of instrument to be able to convince an audience of Zeppelin nerds. Some of these big festivals, big stages, to be a convincing, big enough sound. So that no one's going to notice that Jimmy ain't there, right, for 5 minutes. You can't do that with a violin or a dulcimer or some musical glasses, or it's got to be something unusual, big sounding, but also familiar to die-hard Zeppelin types. And of course, the hurdy-gurdy is totally in that they would have all known about Song Remains the Same and the links with the band, and then presto, Robert introduces somebody who looks like they should be there, and they're playing this thing that's all plugged up.
Right.
But not knowing who they were definitely helped. Yeah. because
Yes.
you can't be a fan and be on tour. No one wants to have a fan on tour with you. You know, you've got to be somebody who's their own chap. I wish I could do it now because I'd be even more, you know, feel more equal. But you know, it was different circumstances then. I really needed it, really wanted it, you know. And
so if I ever make it to the UK, I just have to act like I don't know who the you are.
Yeah. Exactly. We don't like being sucked up to, you know. We hate it. I hate it. Everybody hates it. They hate it. It's a British thing.
Yeah. When you were working on that Unledded project, did you just come up with the hurdy-gurdy parts on your own, or did they tell you what to do, or how?
No, they never told me nothing.
It's definitely the Nigel Eaton sound. When you listen to that, it's definitely.
No, I think they knew exactly what the effect was going to be on their own audiences. As long as I wasn't actually out of time, out of tune, or awful, it was going to be the job that they foresaw it doing. They needed that moment for Jimmy to chill during the 3 hour set, right? Really, and it had to be something peculiar, and I could do it. I knew how to do it, you know. And on those big stages, I've been on stages since I was 15, but the big stages are somewhat different. In folk festival, you can see the whites of the audience's eyes, and you know damn well they can see yours, and that creates fear. Unless you're going to be, you know, the person you want to be. But when you first walk on stage, you're somewhat nervous, but there was no nerves with something like those big stadium gigs and arena gigs, because you can't see them. You can't see the audience. And in your head, you're thinking they can't, therefore, I mean, you can see those big screens with your face 4 miles off. But because you can't see them, you don't feel the fear, and you can be whoever you want to be. It's not really that. You're trying to be the person that they're expecting to see. Not expecting to see something. The very first show, I think, was Pensacola, and I decided the way I'd have dreamed before how I was going to do it. I was going to stand there all enigmatic and going, oh, those lovely chords, oh, lovely twiddly, twiddly, twiddly bit. And then I was going to go dun, 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 and be mysterious and peculiar. And then it looked like I died. I saw the video back.
Actually, this is Michalina told us about this. Like the first time she was playing with Helveti and the stage presence, and how she needed to learn this, actually. So
you have to run around. You have to be big. You have to move big, and then you look like a rock star. And it's not because you're a rock star. It's because if you don't do that, you look like a morons walked on stage, and you know, and they've got past the security. So it's quite good. It's like wearing a mask, I suppose. People say that, don't they? When they wear a mask, you can be somebody else. But I wasn't really doing that. I wasn't promoting myself. I never felt I was doing it for me. I felt I was doing it, and this might sound corny, for Dad and the family and the hurdy-gurdy. I knew that the thing that I had in my arm was going to be so. I knew the effect it was going to have on the audience as well, because it's obvious when you plug this thing into a 200 kilowatt PA system, you can play a kazoo through that thing. You could play a kazoo through it, and it's going to sound like Concorde taking off. And they've got proper sound engineers at the back that is going to make it sound like absolute God. And you just trust these people to do their stuff, and they do. You know, they're good at it. So I was promoting the hurdy-gurdy, really. And try not to let it down, right, and let Dad down, and just hoping everything was going to be all right, which of course it always was. But this is why I'm so deterred. That's why I get a bit narky when you see hurdy-gurdies that are sort of just about held together, mentioning no names, because I know what it's like to be backstage when it's 2 degrees, when you're walking on stage and it's plus 55. You know, you've got gut strings, and how do you do that with something that isn't made by an engineering genius? Really, you know, it's essential if the hurdy-gurdy is going to be promoted and accepted as a real, genuine thing, because there's a lot that can go wrong. We all know that. You want to make sure that it can't, and it's tough. It requires engineering.
So during that time, was that, again, you know, I told you this in the original messages we had before we did this, that I'm not really as all up on the hurdy-gurdy stuff as I need to be yet. But at that time, when you were doing this with Page and Plant, do you think that was the first real big showing of the hurdy-gurdy to the world on that kind of scale?
I can't think of anything else other than that.
Yeah,
Probably, yes.
We had Arcade Fire, wasn't it? After that, Regime came along, wasn't it, and did some stuff. And then, there was Larina. No, that was me again.
Yeah, that was you.
That was me again. Sorry. No, that was from Hossam Ramsey, another recently departed Hossam Ramsey, the wonderful Egyptian percussionist who got me the Larina gig.
He's awesome. He was.
Yeah, 1998 did Mama's Dance with him, and Larina McKennitt, and went on Letterman and stuff. And the riff, the Mama's Dance thing, right. It charted. They wouldn't let. I was about to do Letterman. This name dropping. I was about to do Letterman. This happens every day. And I was trying to get into America, and I had the wrong visa. Larina's office completely balls up my visa, and the Americans were about to throw me out of America for being there a day early or a day late or something. And I said, yes, but you. They want to know what this was. Thought it might have been a bomb. I said, wait.
Did you say
like number 4
bomb or a bomb?
Yeah, exactly. Larina's track was all over America at the time. It was played on every radio station everywhere. I said, have you heard that tune that goes da 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 da? He goes, I like that. He was going, I like. I said, it was that.
This thing.
And Letterman tonight, Larina is going to kill me, then you. And you go, and then, so the way to get into America without the right visa, it was play with Larina McKennitt.
Right.
No, she's lovely, and really good.
What of all the stuff that you've done, of all the people you've played with, of all the stuff you've composed and put out, what are you most proud of? Did you have an aspect that you?
Well, it's the riff that can't be named, isn't it? It's a bit like No Stairway. It's Hall's Way. I like. It's not really. I don't feel I really even wrote that because it's not my usual sort of thing.
Right.
That's come from absolutely nowhere. It was a bourrée to start with. Hall's Way Carol, it's called, and Hall's Way Scottish. Mm-hmm. And then a friend of mine wrote some lyrics, but it's not my usual way. It would have been a bourrée. It was going to be da 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 da. It was going to be minor as well, and be a dark, brooding thing. And by the time I got downstairs, it was already da 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 da. Yes, and then the beam music followed, and then for the first time in my life ever, I managed to work out all the chords all by myself.
Oh yes.
And it really came together, and it was going, this is something now. I've never done this before. It's always, my tunes always had a bit of an edge. They was not really complete, not really, a whole package. But Hall's Way isn't really my sort of area, as you know, but it has, as soon as you make it minor, it becomes mine again. That's Nigel's zone, right? It's doom and gloom. So that one, I suppose, and the Larina riff that was used a lot. Mama's Dance was used a lot.
Very nice.
I like that. I don't know where that came from either, but that was at Real World Recording Studios then with her, and it's such a lovely studio, and she looks after you, and you get breakfast and things, and there's a table tennis table, and everything is made so that you can feel really chilled, so that if so that when you're in the studio and you've got your headphones on, you feel great, and then things like those sorts of riffs can happen because you're in that sort of lovely space. Yeah, but it's coming back from things like that tour and playing with Larina, you have to remember who you really are, because you've been told for 2 years, 3 years that you're great, because they had this crew. Everyone wants to build you up to make you feel like a rock star. There's a jet and stuff, you can order your dinner, and there's your own jet. There's 12 of us, all right, small jet, with a lady on it who brings you your dinners and stuff, and it's all set up so that when you walk on stage, you don't let anyone down, I guess is what it is, and that's what really, it's important, for them. But when you come home, you have to remember you can't get arsy with the wife and wonder why your gin and tonic isn't sat next to your jet. Yeah, you have to remember who you really are.
It's good. Well, before we move on, some of the questions Sergio has, let's take a moment to listen to the Duelists.
Cool.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we'll have listened to the Duelists. And,
I like the Duelists. Oh yeah, Duelists is my one. That's my favourite one. That's my area. Oh, yeah, you can play that one.
Okay. Right. Well, here we go. This is the Duelists. Okay, welcome back to the Hurdy Gurdy Café podcast. We're here with Nigel Eaton and Sergio Gonzalez, and we just got done listening to The Duelists, and this is track number 3 from the album The Duelists, correct?
It is, yeah, with the great Ian Luff, yeah, dear, I'm gone, and Andy Cutting, the great.
Yeah. Again, yes.
And this is one of your favorites too.
Well, I wrote that on tour with Page Plant, so I was bored silly at the back of the stage. You've got to remember that I was only on stage for no more than about 20 minutes, half an hour on a 2.5 hour set. There's a lot hanging around, and that's the thing. Backstage for me, I can't go and play on a whole lot of love, really, or Kashmir. It doesn't work. Changes key. Can't change key. See, it's a disaster. So
Kashmir's just in D though. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, changes key. You can't get a semitone for the best bit at the end. It's hopeless.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. I need to just.
Wait a minute. I need to tune.
Oh, can we wait, please, a minute? Yeah, so I wrote that backstage. We were in Japan, so I was going ding and no, I won't do the Japan music. I was going da da da. This sounds exotic. It's definitely Oriental, and that popped out as well. But it was my area, and I was very pleased with that one.
Nice.
Okay, nice.
It creeps up on you, doesn't it? Yeah.
So we ask this question to everybody that comes here to the podcast, and now is your turn. Can you name your top 3 or top 5 or top 20? It doesn't matter. Players.
Hurdy Gurdy players.
Yes, or the ones that were most influential, like for you.
Oh, that's Cliff Stapleton.
Of course.
Sam Palmer. And they play so well together. Sergio Gonzalez, obviously.
Oh, yes, of course, me.
But apart from him, it would have been mainly, Patrick Booth, a combination of Steve Tyler, of course. You know, you've had Steve on, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Steve Tyler. I mean,
I could never tell if you liked him or not.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I've never really spoken to him for very long. He stayed in the house, but he's quite quiet, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he talks about medieval things, and I don't know what he's on about. Yeah, I know he's lovely, and he plays. You know, he rocks, doesn't he? You've got to play with people that rock, and he really does. And we've done a few duos together. Yeah. Not official ones and that, but yeah, no, we play the same way. Except he's got all of the trumpet technique is so solid. I mean, I could never have the discipline to create that. I have done it in the past, but not in his way. It's so crisp. Yes, but he's British, and he's the other British Hurdy Gurdy player, and that's hard to sort of go, yes, well, he's definitely the one, because he can't be, can he? Because he's the other British one.
Right.
Patrick Bouffard and Vielle, obviously Valentin Clastrier, but I mean, these people are, Valentin and Vielle, they're
yeah, he's an icon.
They're really serious, aren't they? They know their stuff, and they're musical, proper bods, and I'm just a yob, really. I mean, it's like, yeah. I do what I do, and it's best I just stick to it, I think. Mm-hmm. The Steve's really tight, but the most influential would probably be Cliff and Sam and Michel Fromenteau, Claude Flagel as well. Michel's gone, isn't he? Do you know the name Claude Flagel? Big friends with Michel Fromenteau. And he did lovely recordings with orchestras back in the 70s then at the Revival in France then, with orchestras, and he did correct and baton stuff with big orchestras, and he's playing a big Pajot, and it sounds so fabulous in a room with an orchestra. I'd like to do that one day myself rather than just a quartet. Mm-hmm. I did the Four Seasons, but that was with a small quintet. Play with a big orchestra has got to be great, isn't it? Maybe one day. We'll see. Do
you have any recordings of the Four Seasons?
Yeah, so that was on an album. It was with an ensemble called the Palladian Ensemble. Okay. Palladian.
We need to look for that.
Yeah, and that's me playing the Shedville version of the Four Seasons. Obviously, not the proper Vivaldi one. It's the one that was cobbled together for drone instruments by Nicolas Shedville back in the day, early 18th century, isn't it? Mid 18th century. And Jean-Pierre Rahl playing Musette de Cour. The small, yes. The little ivory, the baby little, like a Northumbrian pipe, but shorter, the French one, Musette de Court, the court bagpipe, with him and the Palladian Ensemble. But it's not really my area, because it requires practice, knowledge of Baroque music, which I was supposed to have been learning when I went to Guildhall School of Music, didn't bother doing.
Because you were studying cello, didn't you?
Only for 10 minutes, because my sister was doing it. I found one at a car boot sale. I got to grade 5. Grade 5's a lot when you're a yob living in Southampton. But happily, Dad came along and made these things, and that saved me from ever having to go to a cello lesson ever again or engaging with reality in any way. So it was, it was good.
Well, that's usually the question that we end on. But I'm curious, do you both have time for maybe 2 more?
Yes, and maybe for 3 more.
Okay.
I've got all the time in the world.
All right, great. Well, the question I was curious about, obviously, and this comes from Scott Marshall, by the way. So Scott Marshall, he mentioned this. He said, as a god of hurdy-gurdy and the son of a legendary luthier, how do you see the current? How do you see the current scene, like the current hurdy-gurdy scene? How do you feel about it? Participate in it?
Well, it's getting mega, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's getting it's this pirate thing. It's black sails and stuff, isn't it? It's really drawing people in. I'm glad actually I'm talking to you because of your previous knowledge of me when hurdy-gurdys were hurdy-gurdys, because they've since not been, haven't they? They've been a peculiar sounding film sound effect. really. And the hurdy-gurdy world, of course, loves its own scene, doesn't it, and wants to grab in things that are popular. And there's a lot of criticism to be made of a lot of recent instruments as well. We won't go into that, but there's it's to fuel the scene. It's to supply the burgeoning hurdy-gurdy. The burgeoning, is that getting bigger? Burgeoning.
Yeah, that seems like the right way.
Get bigger scene, and it's supply and demand, I suppose. And when you hear the hurdy-gurdy sound on things like Black Sails or on pirate stuff or games, and that, it's not going to be a proper player playing it, is it? It's not going to be Gilles Chabanat really banging some stuff out. It's going to be a whatever the composer thinks an hurdy-gurdy is from watching it on, a cartoon show or something. Or watching it on the Polar Express where it's being played upside down. I'm endlessly in film sessions where I'm overdubbing, the hurdy-gurdy play where they've got some poor extra in to, where they've been handed a machine, a hurdy-gurdy, and been told that they're always doing it like that, aren't they? Sort of thing. Down, definitely. I was laughing with myself. But it's... I don't see it as a major problem that there's lots of quite poor quality hurdy-gurdies being made, because it does keep people going for just long enough to allow them to discover what they really are supposed to be. And those that fall by the wayside, well, they might have fell by the wayside anyway.
Right.
I mean, the first ones I made were awful, but they worked long enough for a year and a half for my dad to hand me a real one. Right. And there was no escape from in my case. I'm the only one that couldn't escape, really. The whole scene, because my dad was doing it, actually doing it for real. I think it's a good thing. Yeah, generally. I just wish some of the instruments were they look like they're taking the mick. I think out of there, it's disrespectful, I think, to make something so badly and knowing that it's that bad, mentioning no names, because the people that are making these things sometimes have own hurdy-gurdies and quite good ones, and they own instruments that at least do work, yet they're trying to sell something which they know can't, and that seems dishonest, and I don't like that. So I worry about that, but looking on the positive, I think we're going to get lots more really good players coming up in the future, and they're going to be young, and they're going to really mean it, right? Like I did.
Yes, of course. And we were talking about Black Sails, but I have EMDB open here with your name on it. Hey. So we know you played in quite a lot of movies, actually, and also you acted, right?
Well, I do a bit of film extraing. Well, I did a film called Tulip Fever back in 2014, and I was asked to provide lots of tunes for it, actually, and put a little group together, which I didn't have to do in the end. It was put together for me, but with really great people in, and I wrote loads of tunes for it. And I love being in the film set so much. I just decided to do it, at extras rates, because I loved it so much. That's why people do it, I suppose. They like the gear and the cuts and the action, and and you can tell your mum that you've been in something, can't you? I still love all
that. What advice do you have for new hurdy-gurdy players? And I'm curious about what your advice, if it would be different for people who, like you, who are younger, 15 or younger, or like me, who just started, a few years ago, who's just turned 40 and so on. Like, would you give different advice for those groups of people?
I would say save up and get something. Well, listen to the folks on hurdy-gurdy community. There's people on there that have been collecting for 30, 40 years. I was on the phone to Curtis Barak yesterday. He's got instruments dating back to 1720s, hundreds of them, really important instruments. There's collectors on there. There's people like Scott Gaiman who know everything and are interested in the history of this stuff. I've only got a passing interest in that. My interest is showing off the dancers. That's that's my only interest. And listen to the people on there that are saying that you need a good, simple well-made instrument that isn't going to sound awful or be torture to set up every morning when you want to pick it up. You want it to work. Otherwise we are going to lose people. Save up. Well, I built my first, it's difficult for me because I built my first nerdy gurdy. I built my first hurdy gurdy like people build their first nerdy gurdies. Oh,
Exactly.
They build their own ones. Then that's a lovely training, really, because if you can make something, they're a practical machine. If you've had a hand in making one or seen one being made in front of your eyes, you instinctively start to understand how they're. So that's got to be good. But a lot of people aren't practical these days. They don't make things. They sit in front of computers. They don't build things with their hands, and that is a pity. And the only way, therefore, I think to get around that is that people should save up and get something good to start with that everybody says is good. You know, the good people say are good. Nerdy Gurdies, TPVs, Trauneckers, you know, Robert Mandel's, and Henri Colibri, the Colibri made by Henry Manel. You know, Sergio's got one. I mean, it's
little baby.
why would you ever need anything? That's all I ever started with, and that's made far better than mine. Yeah, that's all you'd ever need.
€750.
I don't see the need to try and make some super wow gizmo when it can be that simple. And really, if you, I don't know, I don't want to sound like £700 isn't a lot of money, but the hurdy-gurdies are peculiar. It's like trying to get into the harpsichord world.
Right.
You know, if that's what your desire is, there are certain realities, unfortunately. You have to just save up or beg, borrow and steal until you can get something, you know, that's not going to actually hurt your progress in the future.
Right.
Yeah, it's I think it'll all be okay. And there'll be you know, don't want to say the word revolution. But it'll be fine in the end, and people will work out what's what. You can't gaslight people forever.
Right.
Hurdy-gurdies are real, genuine things, and there are certain realities to do with them that they have to be machines, engineered, hit behind the scenes engineering that you don't even know is there, but it's stuff that's got to be made by either brilliant people or fabulous machines that can do it.
Right.
And we're not seeing a great deal of that at the moment, are we? But anyway, that's fine. Hurdy-gurdies have always been peculiar. They'll always have a limited actualness in the world, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
I like being peculiar. We like being peculiar, don't we?
Yeah. Yes, of course. That's why we play.
Yeah, that's why we do. We want everybody to play, and otherwise there wouldn't be any us, would there?
Right.
No, that is elitist.
It's all right. Well, you know,
all of that.
The thing I always, when I'm watching the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe, they're talking about getting together in groups with other Hurdy Gurdy players. I'm like, why the hell would you want to play with another Hurdy Gurdy player? Don't you want to be the Hurdy Gurdy player in the group?
Yeah, but when you get two together, they look so cinematographic as well. If both players are doing
same time, right?
Those French weddings where you get pairs of them, it looks so filmic, and they really should do a film about you know, Maître Sonneur, the Georges Sand novel, all about the hurdy-gurdy players back in the day, in the 17th century, sitting nose to nose, outdoing each other, the same as I was doing with Patrick back in the 80s. Yeah, some great films to be had, but they sound greater than some of their parts when there's two.
Okay.
It's like having I make cupboards. Having one cupboard is brilliant. Having two makes a room look amazing, and two hurdy-gurdies do the same thing, and it has to be the right other person. Steve Tyler would be good. Patrick Buffard would be good.
Yeah.
You've got to have people that rock. And
well, that's a good thing. I don't, you know, I'm not anywhere near another Hurdy Gurdy player, so I'm looking forward to the day when I can actually play with another Hurdy Gurdy player.
Or play with somebody who's got a natural groove. I mean, the people I play with, like Andy Cutting or Jimmy Page or Julie Murphy, even singers can rock. And the great Ian Luff, playing with people that they've all got one thing in common: they all know where the beat is, right. And they can get you out of trouble if you start being a bit too flash and you lose the beat somewhere. You can rely on these people, being on stage with them, and they'll pull you out of a hole. And you can sometimes do the same for them. You know, you've got to play with people who can rock, and it doesn't really matter what they play. They can play an ocarina. If they're playing it funky, then that's gonna do something to you. You'll play differently with them.
Right. Well, that's good, because I actually do have a very wonderful violinist that I play with, and she has impeccable timing. So that's good to hear. That doesn't have to be another Hurdy Gurdy player.
So all you need.
Good. Well, I think we're getting towards the end. Sergio, do you have any other questions?
Yes, my last question, because I am very, very curious about this. I play quite a lot of tunes composed by Nigel, and all of them rock. So I'm very curious. How do you approach composition? Like, are you like improvising and then you catch the good
Yes,
phases?
I think so. Probably the same way you do. I mean, I tend to write a tune when I get a new bit of gear or a new effects pedal or even a new cable. But especially when you get a new hurdy-gurdy, I used to get them from French eBay and have Dad do them up to keep him interested. He's sort of retired, but he likes to fiddle around with these things, and he delivers them back to me, and they've become a proper, they'd be maybe a Peugeot, but with all proper running gear in them, and now they work. Okay. And you start fiddling with it, and it's gone a bit out of tune, and you've got the moose string maybe in a slightly different tuning, and you throw your hand in, and something can pop out at you, can't it? It can go da da da. You know, you go where does that go? You know, and sometimes it's handed to you from the ether, and sometimes you have to work at it, and they're the ones that aren't so good. That's the thing. They're mostly handed to me by my muse, I guess. I mustn't offend her.
Okay.
So Sergio, who's your muse?
Who is my muse? Oh my God. I don't think I have one of those because I don't compose much.
Well, we'll have to get you one. Excellent. Well, thank you for being here, Nigel and Sergio. It's really wonderful to speak with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for asking me.
And we're going to finish up with a recording. Now, this recording comes from that YouTube video you sent me from the VH1 interview, and it has the title Laride, or Laride under it.
Yeah, Laride.
Laride. Okay.
Laride, yes.
Sorry, my French is not that good.
No, I noticed that before on another.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is a tune that you wrote as well, correct?
No. Laride, there's a million Larides. They're Breton dances. I think Laride is actually a type of dance rather than a name for a tune, isn't it? And you get Laride 1 and Laride de Saint Malo and Laride de some other town in Brittany. Okay. And it's just one of them. But this was the one that I played with the Page Plant tour, because it's so simple. And you can do the Radio Gaga clap if there's 125,000 of you.
Right.
And that it works in that level, and you can build it up with quiet, and you go to the chords, and then you can hit them with the tune. I didn't write it. I wrote all the fancy stuff all the way around it, but it's a Breton traditional folk tune. Laride de somewhere or other. I've never known. Nobody ever knows. Nobody knows.
Well, I'm going to try to learn it your way, so we'll see how it goes. But all right. Well, thank you for being here, and we'll see you again next time on the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast. So take care.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.